My limited edition plush is still available, so check the link in the description if you want to get it before it's gone.
Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne.
And today I'm answering a strange question. What would old-style strip newspaper comics be like if they had to come out today as webtoons? I'm going to start simple and then move on to the more corrupted versions that I get to later in the video. So for this first one, I wanted to webtoonize Dilbert. A lot of webtoons are romantic, and so they have romantic male leads. And sometimes those leads are in like the corporate world, usually as like a CEO or a boss of something. And I thought that because Dilbert already works in an office and is wearing like sort of pseudo formal wear, I would just go all in on making him look like the like sultry love interest who's like always wearing a tie and looking very like I guess seductive businessy. I've noticed a lot of, in particular, Korean webtoons have a lot of heartthrobs who are kind of I don't know, misanthropic perhaps, a little bit sulky and edgy, so that's kind of the direction I wanted to go with this. He kind of ends up looking like a business casual e-boy, so I don't know if that's a success or a failure, to be honest, but I had to work with the interesting design. He's obviously not supposed to look particularly appealing in the original comic. He's supposed to be very much like an everyman. He has these round glasses, no mouth whatsoever, which is interesting, and his hair appears to just be a hideous growth on his head because it's the exact same color as his skin. I decided to bless him with some hair. I assume that it's supposed to be some sort of like shaved on the sides, hair on the top sort of style, but it's kind of hard to tell because it is so simplified. So I decided to go in on that. So we're doing shaved on the sides, and then I decided to give him a little more length on the top just so that we can have this nice like cascade down the side of his face, since he's got his head sort of like cocked towards the camera. I think it's really fascinating how the sort of cultural exchange between the West and the East, and also just generally how the internet has opened up different genres to being like valid comics. When I was really young and all of the comics I ever saw were in the newspaper, I never thought that there would be a time in which really complex, mature stories would be able to be told in this medium, and I think it's really cool, honestly. Yeah, but anyway, so I tried my best to make Dilbert look really cool and attractive. I don't know if it was super successful, but I did my best. I gave him a mouth as well. I don't know if that's betraying the original design, but I really thought he needed one because I was relatively realistic with his other facial features, and I thought it looked really weird without it. This is where things started to get a little bit messed up, I'll just say. So Garfield was my absolute favorite when I was a kid. The first like actual character I ever tried to copy was Garfield, and I used to trace his face over and over. For some reason I was just fixated on him when I was like a really little kid. So for this rendition I thought I should dip into horror webtoons, especially because there's certain webtoons that got extremely popular or infamous in this genre, and Liz with her classic vintage sort of like nurse outfit and this scary syringe and the bright red lipstick, it made me realize that her design, if it was in a different style, would look very like femme fatale. So I wanted to go in sort of that darker yandere sort of direction with her, and I ended up making this like very spooky promotional material. I came up with this idea that John Arbuckle is going into a veterinary's office to take care of his cat Garfield, obviously, and he finds out some sort of terrible secret about Liz, and he and Garfield are basically trapped in the clinic or something, you know, a tense sort of story with Liz being the leading antagonist. I thought that would work really well and make it more like edgy and, you know, I don't know, just make it more webtoony, I guess, a little more drama than you typically get out of a strip style comic. So I took a lot of inspiration from other sort of like tense thrillery comics, and I tried to make her look really intimidating, and I think John really fits this role quite well. He's very like hapless in the comic. He's always getting dunked on by his own cat, for God's sakes, so I think it's really easy to put him in this position. As for Garfield, I really wanted to make him look sort of like unique and artsy. I don't draw a lot of animals, so I wanted to try to like experiment and do something a little different. And I put the title in Japanese. Most of the webtoons I'm actually like referring to are Korean, but for some reason when I think about horror comics, I just immediately think of Junji Ito, and it makes me want to draw it in Japanese. Plus, I'm much better at drawing Japanese characters, so that's my excuse for that. Honestly, I was a pretty hardcore Garfield fan, and I really looked into like the canon and tried to follow the story, and the romance between John and Liz is kind of awful, to be honest. She's way out of his league. She's pretty disrespectful to him. She doesn't like any of his advances, and they just kind of end up in a relationship somehow anyway. It's okay. I mean, I know it's hard to develop complicated relationships and stuff through weekly strip comics, but I guess that's why dramatic and romantic webtoons have really had their day in the sun, because there's like not a lot of American equivalents or, you know, Western newspaper equivalents to the kind of relationships you can build up when you have a longer form narrative content. But yeah, here we have my scary Garfield design. I hope you like it. Next up, I wanted to do Kathy. Now, this comic is so old, I feel like I have to tell you guys like what specifically it was. I don't think I ever, I think this stopped before I was even born, but Kathy was basically a comic strip about a woman who mostly just, all the jokes were about the fact that she had like a really big purse and she packed too much and she bought too many shoes, and also she always wanted to be skinnier than she was, and she loved eating chocolate, and she loved going or ack, I guess was like her signature thing. Because there's one of the like anthologies where clearly she's wearing all kinds of, I guess, body shapers and stuff like that, it really made me think about True Beauty, which is a Korean webtoon about a girl who looks really beautiful when she like puts all this like, you know, makeup and circle lenses and fancy clothes and styles her hair, and then when she goes home and relaxes, she looks very, very average and ordinary. So I wanted to sort of riff off of that with Kathy. Kathy's design changes a lot. Like, she has a lot of different clothes that she wears, which is actually not very common for a comic strip character. Usually they're dressed exactly the same every single week, or every single day, I guess, actually. But her clothes change a bit more, though it seemed like the one outfit I could see her in the most was when she was wearing her sort of like business suit with pearls. So that's the outfit I tried to work with here. I tried to make her look really stylish and sort of like an intriguing sort of character, and just give her face more like definition, I guess. She has a very, very simplified face. Her eyes are super, super close together, and she has a big mouth. No nose really, and then she just has a middle part. That's all you really get to work with here. So I added in little details as I saw fit, and generally just tried to make this look like a fashionable, interesting sort of character design with the foundation that I had from the original comic. Interestingly, the main conflicts for the whole comic were broken down into what the author called the 4 guilt groups for Kathy, which are food, love, her mom, and work. So work is pretty simple. It's just like things that she has to deal with at work, obviously. Love is trying to find the right man and like not settling down, that kind of stuff. Her mom wanting her to get married, and then the food one, which was at the center of most of the strips that came up when I looked up Kathy, is just about her feeling guilty about everything that she eats and constantly worrying about her weight. So since the conflicts in the story are based around guilt, I feel like the pose I chose for her is pretty good. She looks sort of borderline ashamed, and that does seem to be at the core of what this strip is really about. And I completely ripped off True Beauty's sort of like logo design for the finishing touch on this, and here is the promotional material for my brand new webcomic True Kathy. So here are all my redesigns of old style newspaper comic strips and how I would do them if they were supposed to be rebooted as a edgy or cool webtoon instead. Thank you so much for watching this weird video to the end. Please check out my plushie if you're interested in that, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you to all of my patrons, including Abnormal Crap, Ambrose, Best Kaiju, Lion, Christopher, Clockwork Construct, Dark Jelly, Dr. Casket, Larry Louie, Emily Borgoing, Fabletel, Juliana Davis, Griffix, Hidden Squid, Ice Cream Pal, Yvonne Rodriguez, JJJ, John Mosket, Joseph Copel, Lauren, Blah 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 Blah, Liliana Hammond, Maria Costa, Mr. Dr. Pants, Mia Lavali, Nicole Ludwak, Nicolette Queen, Nora Cornelison, Hugh Musgrove, Rainwater Pearls, Rune Raincrow, Snow White, Some Mediocre Artists, Sparky Plays, The Becky, Tom David Johansson, Trace Subaki, Violet Zirkelbach, Yaboyasti, and Yume Lily.